This is J. Krishnamurti's fifth public talk in Saanen, 1961.
I would like this morning, if I may, talk over with you rather a complex subject. But before I begin to do that, I think, as I said previously during these gatherings, that a certain amount of seriousness is necessary. Not the seriousness of a long face or eccentricism, but that urge and that compulsive insistence to go to the very end, not deviating, not compromising in the sense yielding where it is necessary, but continuing. Because I want to deal this morning with something which demands all your seriousness and attention. It is a subject which the Orient calls meditation, and I'm not at all sure that the Occident understands fully what the Orient means by that word. Each one of us translates it, interprets it in his own way. And as we are not talking or representing the Orient or the Occident, we are trying to find out what it is to meditate. Because to me that's very important. It encompasses the whole of life, not a fragment of it. It deals with the totality of the mind and not a fragment of it. And as most of us, unfortunately, cultivate the fragment and become very efficient in that fragment, to go into the whole process of unraveling, cultivating, destroying, and revealing the dark recesses of one's own mind, exploring without an object, not seeking an end, and the total comprehension of the whole of the mind, and perhaps going beyond, is to me what is meditation. And I would like to go into it rather hesitantly because each step reveals something. And I hope we will not merely, all of us, merely remain at the verbal level or at the intellectual analysis, or merely gather up some emotional, sentimental tidbits, but being somewhat serious, perhaps we can go to the very end of it. And it may be necessary in doing that to deal with the same thing another day on Tuesday. We're all seeking something. And we are seeking not only at the physical level, but the intellectual level, at the deeper levels of one's own consciousness. We're always seeking. Seeking happiness, seeking comfort, seeking security, seeking prosperity, seeking certain dogmas, beliefs in which the mind can settle down and be comfortable. If you observe your own mind, your own brain is always doing this, seeking, 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 never being satisfied, or seeking to be satisfied permanently, everlastingly. We are seeking physical comforts, physical well-being. And if we are satisfied with that, we remain there. And most of us, unfortunately, are satisfied to remain with physical comforts, with a little prosperity, with a little knowledge, with mediocre relationships, and so on and on and on. If we are dissatisfied, as perhaps some are, with the physical, then we seek a psychological, an inward comforts, securities. And if we are dissatisfied with that, we want more intellectual, more knowledge, more we search, seek, inquire. And this seeking is exploited by all religions throughout the world. Christianity does it in one way, the Hindus do it in another, and the Buddhists, and so on. They offer gods, beliefs, securities, which the mind accepts and is conditioned thereby and seeks no further. Or it seeks only to fulfill what the churches throughout the world have offered. And so our seeking is canalized and exploited. If you are thoroughly miserable, dissatisfied with the world, with ourselves, with our capacities, and if you are dissatisfied with our capacities, to do this and to do that, then we turn to something much greater, identify ourselves with something much vaster, seeking always. And unfortunately, we're always finding what we are seeking, again to be shaken and further search. This process of discontent and always holding till we are shaken loose from it does breed, does it not, the sense of following, the sense of creating authority. The authority of the church, the authority of the various priests, saints, sanctions, and so on and on and on throughout the world. Now, a mind that is crippled with authority, whether it be the authority of the religion, the authority of capacity, the authority of experience, or the authority of knowledge, can never be free to find out. The mind must be surely free, be free to discover. And one of our immense problems is to free the mind from all authority. Not the authority of the policeman and the law. I don't mean that. If you do, you'll find yourself in jail or whatever it is that happens. Going the wrong side of the road obviously will bring accidents. I'm not talking of shunning authority at that level. That would be too silly and absurd. Not to pay taxes and so on. But I'm talking of an authority that's self-created or imposed in our desire to find, in our desire to seek. By society, by religion, by books. And it seems to me one of the essential things, an absolute necessity, to free them, for the mind to free itself from all sense of authority. And it's very, very, very difficult. Because each word, each experience, each image, each symbol leaves its knowledge, which becomes our authority. You may shun the authority, outer authority, but each one of us has his own secret authority. The authority of experience, the authority of saying, I know. And I think it is this freedom from all authority, inward authority, following a pattern, fragmentary action. One may be very good at music or at some other thing, but that is still fragmentary action. We are talking of a total action in which the fragment is included. But to find the total action, the action that covers the whole of life, the physical, the emotional, the intellectual, the action that comes into being when one has gone in deeply into the unconscious and uncovered all the dark secrets of one's own mind. Comes out, when the mind comes out of that, cleansed. It is that total action which is meditation. So it requires a great deal of arduous work and inward looking. To discover all the bypaths, lanes that we have established through centuries, in which we are constantly wandering, which is the authority. And I assure it's one of the most difficult things to be free. To forget everything that one has known inwardly of yesterday. To die to every experience inwardly that one has had, pleasurable or painful. Because then the mind is free to live, to act totally. But to do this, it requires an awareness without choice, a passive awareness, in which state all the secret longings, urges, compulsions and wishes and desires are shown, where the mind doesn't choose but merely observes. Because the moment you choose, you have established subtly authority. And therefore the mind is no longer free. To be aware inwardly of every movement of thought, the implication of every word, the significance of every desire, wish, and not to deny or to accept, but to pursue, to watch, choicelessly, does free the mind from authority. And it's only when the mind is free, then it can discover what is true and what is false. Not before. But this freedom is not at the end, but at the beginning. Therefore, meditation is not a process of disciplining the mind, of controlling the mind, or shaping the mind by desire, by knowledge. I hope you are following all this. Probably some of this is new to you, and you may reject it. You know, to accept or reject shows the incapacity to follow what another is saying to the very end. And since you have taken the trouble to come here all the way from wherever you have come, it would be absurd just to say, well, he's wrong or he's right. And so it is, I think, sufficiently important. If you take the trouble to listen. To listen to find out what is true, not what you think. To find out if what the speaker is saying something false or true. And to see the false in the truth. And to see the truth as truth, as factual. And that is denied if you are comparing. If you have read some book on some meditation, on psychological books, books on psychology, and they compare, then you're off. You're not listening. But if you listen, not with effort, to listen, because you want to find out, there's a certain joy in listening. And I feel that very act of listening to what is true is the key. You have to do nothing but to actually participate in listening. Not identify. Because in meditation there is no identification, no imagination. So one begins to, and the mind begins to understand the whole process of its own thinking. And you will find thought becomes authority. Thought based on memory, knowledge, experience. The thinker which guides thought. So the mind has to be aware of its own thoughts, the motives, from where thoughts have arisen, the cause of them. And you will find as you inquire very, very deeply, the authority of thought ceases altogether. So, one must lay the right foundation upon which they build the house of meditation. Obviously, every form of envy, which is essentially comparison, you have something I haven't got. You're clever, I am not. You're a gift, I haven't. You're beautiful, I am not. This comparative existence, this all comparing all our life. He's a big man, well-known man, I am not. I must share his greatness or identify myself with him. Envy. The envy of possession, jealousy. A mind that's envious cannot go very far. It may succeed in this world with things, with prosperity, having more cars, more pleasures. But a mind that's envious is obviously incapable to go very far. And a mind that's ambitious too you see, a mind that's ambitious is always seeking. Wanting to be successful, comparing, fulfilling. And most of us are ambitious. Not only in this world, but inwardly. Not only outside the skin, but inside the skin. We want to make a success. And a mature mind has no success or failure. So, envy, ambition, the mind must be totally free, not just casually free. Not in fragments, but wholly. And that too is very arduous, to cleanse the mind that has been educated for centuries. Not to compete, not to succeed, which doesn't mean that you must fail. Not to be envious, and therefore there is no question of success or failure. You know, to be free of envy is not a matter of time. It's not a matter of gradually getting rid of envy. Or creating its opposite and living with the opposite, or identifying yourself with the opposite, or trying to unify, or trying to bring about an integration with the opposite. which all implies a gradual process. You are ambitious, the ideal is non-ambition or a non-envy. To cover the distance, you must have time. To achieve the ideal. I think to me, all that process is utterly immature. If you see something, clearly it drops. If you see envy, totally, with all the implications in it. And to see the implications of envy is not very difficult. It doesn't take time if you look. If you are aware, it opens itself rapidly. And the seeing of it is the dropping of it. And obviously, a mind that's envious, ambitious, self-centered, cannot see what is beautiful, cannot know what love is. May be married, may have children, may have houses perpetuating its name. But a mind that is envious, ambitious, does not know love. It knows sentiment, emotionalism, attachment. Attachment is not love. And if you have gone that far, not merely intellectually or verbally, you will find there's the flame of passion. Passion is necessary. To see passionately the mountain, the misery, the appalling divisions man has created in his urge for security. To see, to feel intensely, not self-centeredly. So this is the foundation. And having laid the foundation, the mind is free. Then the mind can proceed. Perhaps there is no procedure further. So unless this is totally, completely established in the mind, all seeking, all meditation of whatever book you read, whoever has said it, leads to illusion, to false visions. A mind conditioned in Christianity, as Jesus being the only Savior, obviously has visions of Jesus perpetually. And such a mind only lives in illusion, it's based on authority. And such a mind is a very limited, narrow mind. So, if one has gone that far inwardly, not day after tomorrow or next month or eventually, but actually at this present moment, to go inwardly. Because what I'm talking about is merely expressing in words. Words are not the thing. And if you're merely caught in the words, you're not inwardly following. Not the speaker inwardly following yourself. So, meditation is essential. Not sitting cross-legged, breathing in a certain way, repeating certain phrases, following a formula. Which are all tricks. They're leading nowhere, except if you follow a system, what it promises you will get. But what you get is a fragment and useless. And besides, if you follow a system, a method is based on authority. That is the authority of the Buddha or of Christ or of the modern writers. You can't discipline the mind from the beginning and at the end be free. But if one understands this whole process of discipline, inward discipline, which is conformity, born of fear, not wanting to do the wrong thing which might lead to misery. Conform, imitate, follow. Suppress in order to achieve some unknown thing which the writer or the person who has experience promises. Surely all that must be put aside, dropped on the instant, because one understands it immediately. The immediacy of understanding is prevented when the mind is lazy. And most of us are lazy. That's why we want methods, systems, to be told what to do. You know, there is a certain form of laziness which is passivity, which is very good, to be passive. Then only you see things very clearly, sharply. But to be physically, mentally lazy makes the mind and the body dull, and that is incapable of then looking, seeing. So, having the mind, having laid the foundation, which is not virtue, which is not a state of respectable morality, it is actually denying society and morality of society with its respectability. You know, virtue is a marvelous thing. It's a lovely thing. It's a pure thing. It cannot be cultivated. You cannot cultivate humility. Only the vain man cultivates humility. But making effort to be humble is the most stupid thing to do. But one comes upon humility easily, darkly, hesitantly. When the mind begins to understand itself, when there is a self-knowing, knowing oneself, all the dark, unexplored corners of one's consciousness, then you come upon humility. And then such humility is the ground, is the eyes, is the breath through which you see and tell and communicate. So without self-knowing, and you cannot know yourself if you condemn, judge, evaluate, but know, to watch, to see what is without distortion, just to observe as you would observe a flower, without tearing it to pieces or accepting it, without identifying it yourself with it, just to look what is taking place, the self-knowing. So without self-knowing, all thought leads to perversion and to delusion. So meditation is self-knowing. not discovering eternal values or what is beyond the mountains, or if there is a God or not. But in self-knowing one begins to lay the foundation of true virtue, which is not recognizable by society or by another. The moment society or another recognizes it, you are in their pattern. Therefore, your virtue is the virtue of respectability. Therefore, no longer virtue. So self-knowing is the beginning of meditation. There is a great deal more to be said about meditation. Perhaps we shall go into it on Tuesday. But this is only an introduction, as it were. It's only the first chapter. And the book never ends. There is no finishing, no attaining. And the marvel of all this is really, and the beauty of it, is when the mind, in which is included the brain, everything, when the mind has seen and exhausted itself of all the discoveries it has made, when it is entirely empty of the known, empty, not made empty by desire, by success, by emptying itself without any motive of everything it has known inwardly. Then the unknowable, then the thing that cannot be measured may perhaps come into being. I'm afraid I've talked rather too long this morning. I didn't realize it. I think we have about 5 or 6 minutes left. During which we can ask questions and talk things over.
I don't quite understand that freedom must be at the beginning and not in the end, because at the beginning there is the past in me acting and not freedom.
The gentleman says he doesn't quite understand that freedom is at the beginning and not at the end. Because at the beginning, all action is conditioned. Therefore, how can one be free at the beginning? But will you be free at the end? So you see, that involves the question of time. Will you be free after many days or many centuries? Don't, please, this is not a question of arguing or accepting what I'm saying. I'm conditioned. As a Hindu, as a Christian, as a communist, what you will. I'm held by society. My mind is shaped by events, by influences. Everything I've eaten, clothes I put on, breathe, has conditioned my mind. Is the unconditioning a matter of time? Do please think it over. Let's go into it a little bit. Perhaps we may not have time today, we'll do it another day. But is it a matter of time? If you say it's a matter of time, in the meantime, you're adding more conditions, not less. So, look, every cause has an effect. But the cause and the effect are not static. What was the effect becomes the cause. And what was the cause becomes the effect. It's a chain. It is not a clear thing that says this is the cause and this is the effect. Because there are influences, time, it's maturing, everything is changing. I am conditioned, if I am, as a Hindu, let's suppose, or a Christian. Let's take something very, very nearer, much nearer. You're conditioned as an Englishman, as a Jew, as a Swiss, aren't we? Do you mean to say it takes time to see the absurdity of it? And seeing the absurdity of it, to drop it completely? You may have reactions, but those are unimportant. But to drop it, no longer think in terms of a Hindu. That is, to see at the beginning, right off, right away, the poison of being a Hindu. But you say, we don't want to see the pernicious nature of it, because we like it. We've been brought up on it. The flag means something. We derive benefits. To say I'm no longer a Swiss, you might lose the job. Society might throw you out. You might not be able to marry your son, your daughter respectably. So we cling. And that is what prevents us from seeing immediately. And dropping the thing. Sir, look, if I've been working all my life to achieve, to become a famous man, to be the best something, something or other, do you think I'm going to drop it? Because all that he's done has brought him profit, a name, a position, a prestige. He is known. And to see the absurdity of all that, the brutality, the ruthlessness of it all, in which there is no affection, no love, but self-calculated action. Do you think such a person wants to drop it immediately? And he can drop it immediately if he sees it. But he doesn't want to see it. Therefore he invents, we'll do it eventually. Not now, for God's sake, don't disturb me. We'll do it eventually, when it's not so painful. When I've sucked the juice out of everything I have done, with the urge to succeed, then I will talk about it. That's what most of us are doing. Not only the gifted, us who are ordinary, mediocre, we're all the time doing this. And to cut the string doesn't take time. What it needs is immediate perception. As you see immediately a precipice or a snake, what's that? I can't hear. Gentleman asked, you have said, he says, that the mind includes the brain, doesn't it? The mind includes everything, doesn't it? Perhaps we have not the time to go into it this morning. We can do it another time, but doesn't the mind, the totality, include every part? So, the wheel is not the spoke, nor the many spokes. You may put the spokes together, but you will not make the wheel. But if there is the wheel, the feeling of the wheel, then the parts have a meaning. We'll discuss it another time. There's no time to go into now perhaps we'll do it on Tuesday. Yes, please.
If it is possible to eradicate all the experiences of a lifetime, don't you reduce yourself to the level of a newborn child in whose mind, again, inevitably new experiences will be written? New conditioning will occur. You can't eradicate your entire life experience.
Mustn't you have an innocent mind, not a newborn baby, but mustn't you have an innocent mind to see anything clearly? Every experience does shape the mind. Every experience adds to the conditioning of the mind. And through that, we see, through that conditioning. And if we want to see something new, I'm not saying that there is something new. That's not the point. If the mind wishes to see something new, total, something that is creation, surely it must have an innocent mind, a young mind, a fresh mind. I'm not saying one must forget every experience. Obviously, you cannot forget every experience. But the additive process of experience makes the mind mechanical. And a mechanical mind is not a creative mind. Sorry, we'll have to stop. We'll continue on Tuesday.